My son sent me a message. We have more important things to do on my 65th birthday. I said nothing. I cleaned up the party alone, swept away the remnants of a table I had set for people who never came. No tears, no blame, only a quiet truth slowly revealing itself. I had become a stranger in my own family, but this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a journey I never dared to imagine. Before it begins, leave me a comment. Who knows, maybe my story was once your story, too. Today is my 65th birthday. I woke up at 6, like I always do, even though I didn't sleep much the night before. Old age does that to you. I guess your body's tired, but your mind never stops racing. I shuffled out of bed and made myself a cup of black coffee, strong and bitter the way Harold used to hate it. The house was quiet, too quiet. But today, I told myself that would change. I had a plan, like every year since Harold passed away. 15 years now. I threw myself a little birthday dinner. Nothing grand, just a roast chicken with rosemary, mashed potatoes the way David liked them, and Emily's favorite, apple pie with extra cinnamon. I set the table for 4, even ironed the tablecloth, put out the plates with the little blue flowers they used to belong to my mother. I even tied up balloons, blue, yellow, and red, like I used to when David was little. Back then, he'd run through the house chasing them, giggling like a madman. I smiled just thinking about it. I vacuumed the carpet, lit a few vanilla-scented candles, and put on the old Carole King record Harold and I used to slow dance to. In the kitchen, everything was ready by noon. They were supposed to arrive at 1. I checked the mirror before sitting down on the couch. I'd curled my hair, wore my navy blue blouse, the one Amanda once complimented at Thanksgiving. I even on some lipstick, though I couldn't remember the last time I'd worn any. 1:15, 1:30. No message, no call. By 2 o'clock, the roast was cold. I reheated it once, then again. By the 3rd time, it just tasted dry and bitter. The mashed potatoes had started to harden around the edges. The candles were half burned. The balloons floated a little lower. Still, I waited. At 3:17, I picked up my phone and dialed David. It rang 4 times before he picked up. "Hey Mom," he said. His voice was flat. No happy birthday, no warmth. Just words. "David," I said gently, trying to keep my voice even. "You guys are still coming, right?" He paused. That kind of pause where you already know the answer, but you're hoping you're wrong. "Yeah, about that. We're not gonna make it. Amanda had a last-minute thing with work, and Emily's got a soccer practice she can't miss." "Soccer on my birthday?" "I cooked your favorite," I said. My voice sounded small, like it came from someone else. He sighed. "I'm sorry, Mom. We've just got a lot on our plate right now. You know how it is." Before I could reply, he added, "I'll text you." "Okay." Then the line went dead. A few minutes later, the message came through. "We have more important things to take care of, Mom. Sorry." I stared at the words, read them over and over. More important things. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but no tears came. Maybe I was too stunned. Maybe I was just used to being pushed aside. I blew out the candles. They'd already dimmed, flickering low like they were tired of waiting. 2. I scraped the plates into the trash. Even the apple pie. I almost kept a slice for myself, but it tasted like sawdust in my mouth. Then I sat, alone, in the house I kept spotless for them, surrounded by the smell of food no one would eat, the scent of vanilla and dust, and the fading echo of a song that once meant something. And that's when it hit me. Not like a punch, but more like a slow ache in the chest. This wasn't about one birthday. It was about all the birthdays, all the calls not made, the visits skipped, the little ways they'd pulled away over the years while I kept trying to pull them back. I thought I was holding my family together. Turns out, I was the only one still holding on. I looked at the empty chairs at the table. David's, Amanda's, Emily's. And for the first time in my life, I felt invisible. Not angry, not even sad. Just ... not needed, not part of their story anymore. And I think that's what hurt the most. It was 6 months before my 65th birthday, in the middle of February, cold outside, one of those gray Michigan days when even the sky feels heavy. I remember the wind had rattled the front door all morning, like it was trying to come inside. I was watching some old cooking show, wrapped in my blanket, when I heard David's truck pull up. He never came unannounced, not since he married Amanda. So when I saw him walking up the porch steps, bundled in his thick flannel coat, a plastic folder tucked under one arm. I felt a flutter in my chest. I rushed to the door, still barefoot, and opened it before he could knock. "Hey, Ma," he said, smiling like he used to when he was 12 and needed something. He came in, kissed me on the cheek, and rubbed his hands together. "Damn, it's cold out there." I made us coffee, 2 sugars for him, none for me, and we sat in the kitchen. He glanced around like he hadn't been there in years, even though he had just visited over Christmas. Still, something felt different. That day he looked nervous, fidgety. Then he pulled out the folder. "Ma," he said, "me and Amanda found a house." I stopped stirring my coffee. "It's perfect," he went on, spreading out papers like a real estate agent. 3 bedrooms, backyard for Emily, close to her school. Amanda's in love with the kitchen. It's got those granite counters she always talks about. I smiled, happy for him. Really, I was. He'd been talking about moving out of that cramped townhouse for years. But then he got quiet. He tapped on a paper and looked up at me. "We've saved about 30 grand, but the bank wants more for the down payment. We're short about 120. I stared at him. "1,000? I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, but Ma, we did the math. We can pay you back in a few years. We've got a plan. We're not asking for a gift. This is a loan. Family helping family." Then came the papers, legal forms, a contract, some kind of agreement. "You just need to sign here to make it official. We'll take care of the rest." He pushed the pen toward me. I didn't read it. I should have. God knows I should have, but I didn't. Instead, I looked at my son, my only son, the same boy I'd fed from a bottle, who used to sleep curled up next to me after Harold died. He looked tired, older than I remembered. But in that moment, I didn't see a grown man with responsibilities. I saw my boy, chasing dreams, trying to give his daughter a better life. So I signed away the money I'd spent decades saving. The little checks from substitute teaching, the sewing gigs, the Sunday yard sales, the money Harold and I had tucked away bit by bit, always telling ourselves it was for someday. That night, I couldn't sleep. But I wasn't scared. I was excited. David started calling more after that. Once, even twice a week, he'd ask me about curtain colors, tile patterns, whether I liked this paint or that. He brought Amanda over to show me sample pictures. "We want you to feel at home when you visit," he said. He took me to see the house before the renovations started. It was still dusty and bare, but I imagined Emily running through those halls, Amanda cooking in that fancy kitchen, David mowing the lawn, and me, sitting on their porch with lemonade, maybe knitting, maybe just watching the sunset. I felt useful again, wanted. Amanda even invited me over for dinner twice that month. Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad, but it felt like old times. Emily sat in my lap, played with my necklace, told me about her teacher and how she was learning to spell elephant. I laughed so hard that night, my sides hurt, and for the first time in a long time, I thought maybe I hadn't lost my family. After all, maybe I still mattered. Maybe everything I gave them, money, time, love, was building something real, something lasting. Back then, I told myself that this was the right decision, that what mattered most wasn't the money, but being a part of their lives, being included, being needed. I didn't know the sweetness wouldn't last. I didn't see the silence coming, but for those few weeks, maybe even 2 whole months, I was happy in a way I hadn't been in years. I was still mom, I was still grandma, and I thought, I thought they saw me. God, how wrong I was. It was a Saturday afternoon in late July. The sun was high, cicadas buzzing in that endless summer drone, and I was baking cookies with Emily. The house smelled of sugar and butter, and her little hands were dusted with flour as she shaped the dough into lopsided hearts and stars. She always loved baking with me, said I made the best chocolate chip cookies in the whole world. We had music playing low in the background, some Disney thing she liked, and for a little while, everything felt normal, warm. Even then, just as she licked chocolate off her fingers, she asked it, simple, casual, like she was talking about the weather. "Grandma," she said, "how come Daddy said we're selling your house next week?" I blinked. "What, sweetheart?" She nodded seriously. "Yeah, Mommy said it's almost done. Daddy said it'll help us pay for the new patio." The room went still. I don't know if she noticed my face fall, but I just smiled and told her to keep stirring. I didn't want to scare her, but inside, my chest tightened like a vice. After I dropped her back off, Amanda didn't even come to the door, just waved from the car. I sat at the dining table and pulled out the drawer where I kept all the paperwork. The folder David had handed me 6 months ago was still there, buried under old water bills and recipes. I laid everything out on the table. I made coffee, poured it, forgot to drink it. The cup sat untouched as I flipped through every page. At first I thought maybe Emily had misunderstood. She was only 7. Kids mix things up. But the more I read, the more my stomach turned. The agreement I had signed, it didn't say loan, not even close. There was no mention of repayment, no schedule, no interest, no terms. It said transfer of property rights. It said irrevocable authorization. And at the very bottom, in the tiniest legal print, was the kicker. I had signed over the title of my house, my home, the place where David was raised, where Harold died, where every birthday, every Christmas, every tear and triumph of my life had happened. I didn't loan my son money. I gave him everything, and he took it. I opened my laptop and searched my address. My hands were shaking, but I typed it in, just to be sure. A few listings popped up. I clicked the top one, and there it was. Pictures of my living room, my porch, even my garden with the sagging wooden fence I'd been meaning to fix. It was being advertised as a charming, well-maintained property, recently updated by proud owner David Thomas, the result of years of hard work. No mention of me. No mention of the 65 years I spent building a life in these walls. No word about Harold, or the afternoons I spent sewing curtains, or the rose bushes I planted on our 30th wedding anniversary. Just David, just his dream. I don't remember crying. Not right away. I just sat there, still, like someone had reached into my chest and yanked out my lungs. Then I thought back, started replaying things in my head like a movie I'd seen 100 times, but suddenly noticed all the things I'd missed. David's eyes, that day he handed me the folder. How he didn't quite meet mine. Amanda's distant tone whenever I came over. How she always had a meeting or an errand to leave for. The way David always rushed me off the phone these past few weeks. And even Emily, she'd started calling me Grandma Beth instead of just Grandma, like I'd been gently shifted to the side, turned into a character in someone else's story. It wasn't just about the house. It was about what it represented. Trust, respect, family, all of it cracked, like a hairline fracture in glass. Quiet, hidden at first, until suddenly the whole thing shattered. I tried calling David. No answer. I texted, "We need to talk." Nothing. I sat in the kitchen all night, didn't eat, didn't sleep. The cookies Emily made were still on the counter, hardened now, untouched. I looked around my house, and for the first time, it felt like it didn't belong to me anymore, like I was just squatting, a guest in my own life. What kind of son does that? What kind of mother raises a son who could? I didn't have the answer then, and honestly, I still don't. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table, under the soft yellow glow of the old lamp. Harold wired himself in '87, the one with the chipped ceramic base and the crooked lampshade that never sat quite right. That warm light used to make the house feel cozy. Now it felt like a spotlight on the wreckage of a life I thought I understood. Papers were spread across the table like pieces of a puzzle I never meant to solve. The deed, the authorization forms, the contract I'd signed without reading, the printouts of the real estate listing. All of it laid bare, quiet and cruel. I didn't cry, not one tear. Instead, I started connecting the dots, piece by piece. I thought back on the past few months, all those small things that didn't seem important at the time. David's new Rolex, Amanda's shiny new SUV, their sudden trip to Cabo in the spring, first-class flights, beachfront hotel. I remember being surprised when Emily came home with a little seashell necklace and said, "We went swimming with turtles, Grandma." At the time, I thought maybe Amanda's job was paying better, or maybe David had gotten a bonus. He never told me much. But now I saw it all clearly. The money they were spending, it was mine. I opened my old laptop. Took me a good 5 minutes to remember the password. That thing hadn't been touched in over a year. I didn't much care for the internet anymore. Too noisy, too full of people showing off lives they probably didn't really live. But now I needed it. I logged onto Facebook. It took a while to load, but eventually I got there. I typed in David Thomas and clicked on his profile. There it was. Picture after picture of their new life. Amanda in a brand new kitchen, holding a wine glass, David grinning by the pool, Emily in a princess dress, dancing on a deck I paid for. There were captions like "Hard work pays off," and "Built this life with my own 2 hands." One post had 100 likes. Someone even commented, "You're such an inspiration." Man, I read that one twice. Not a single mention of me. Not one "Thanks, Mom." Not even a quiet nod to say, "We didn't do this alone." I scrolled further. There was a picture of David standing next to his new truck, smiling with a pair of sunglasses, and that damn watch I'd admired once, not knowing I'd paid for it. The caption read, "When you grind hard, you get the reward." The reward, huh? I sat back in my chair. My hands didn't shake, my eyes didn't sting. I just felt still, like something inside me had gone cold. Not dead, exactly. Just done. Done hoping, done excusing, done giving without looking back. I'd spent my whole life putting my son first. David was my everything. I cooked, I cleaned, I stayed up nights when he had the flu. I worked 2 jobs after Harold passed, just to keep him in school, clothes that fit. I said no to myself 100 times so I could say yes to him. And now, here I was, a footnote in his success story, if that. I looked around my house, still technically mine, though not for long, apparently. The photos on the walls, the dent in the couch cushion from where I always sit, the scratch on the floor from when David tripped over Harold's boots in 6th grade. All of it suddenly felt borrowed, fragile, temporary. But I didn't cry. Not that night, because something in me had changed. It wasn't rage, not yet. It wasn't grief though, that would come. It was a quiet, firm decision, a vow. I whispered it out loud, just once, to the empty kitchen. Never again. He would not fool me again. He would not use me again. He would not look at me like some forgetful old woman too soft to see the truth. I might be 65, but I wasn't senile, I wasn't blind, and I sure as hell wasn't done fighting. That night, I made a promise to myself. No more being the background of someone else's life. No more silence. No more letting love be used as a leash. The woman David took for granted, the woman he thought too gentle, too gullible to stand up, was gone. What remained was something sharper, not bitter, not cruel, just awake, and finally, fully aware. The next morning, I was up before the sun, didn't bother with breakfast, just pulled on a sweater, tied my hair back, grabbed my purse, and walked out the door. The August air was already thick and warm, but I didn't feel it. My chest was tight, but steady. My hands weren't shaking. I didn't tell David I was coming. I didn't want to give him the chance to prepare some story or fake his way through it. No, I wanted to see his eyes when I asked the questions. I wanted to hear how his voice changed when he realized I wasn't playing the fool anymore. His new house wasn't far. Just a 15-minute drive. Big place, white shutters, freshly paved driveway. Amanda's SUV sat in front, gleaming like it had just come off the lot. I parked across the street and took a deep breath before walking up the steps. I rang the bell twice. A few seconds passed before the door cracked open. David stood there, in gym shorts and a wrinkled t-shirt, holding a phone in one hand, blinking like he wasn't sure it was really me. "Mom," he said, confused, trying to smile like this was just some sweet surprise. I looked him in the eye. "Can we talk?" He hesitated, eyes darting inside the house like maybe Amanda was still asleep or didn't want company. But then he stepped aside and let me in. The house looked nice, too nice. New furniture, big flat-screen TV, art on the walls. It was the kind of place people posted about online when they wanted to prove they'd made it. We sat in the kitchen. The countertops were marble, cold, perfect, expensive. I didn't waste time. I saw the listing for my house. I said, calm and clear, "I saw what you're asking." I saw the caption about years of hard work. Whose hard work was that, David? He opened his mouth, but I kept going. I saw the documents again, the ones I signed, and I finally read them. This time, he scratched the back of his neck and gave that little nervous chuckle he used to use when he broke a window playing ball as a kid. "Mom, listen. Let's not make this into something dramatic, okay? You signed the papers. It's legal. It's all there." He tried to laugh, but it came out dry. He poured himself a glass of orange juice. "Didn't offer me any. I didn't know I was signing over my house," I said. "I thought I was helping you with the loan." "Well," he said, leaning on the counter, "you didn't ask, and I didn't lie. You just assumed." That's when something inside me shifted. I stood up, slow and steady. I assumed, I said, because I trusted my son not to trick me. He put the glass down harder than he meant to. It's not a trick if it's legal, Mom. That's how things work now. You said you wanted to help us. You did. And now we're finally stable. Why can't you just be happy for us? You called this stable? I asked, motioning around. A brand new house, designer clothes. A kid who thinks we're selling grandma's place like it's nothing. His face changed then. The smile slipped. His shoulders tensed. Everything I did was for this family, he snapped. You think Amanda and I can raise a kid in that old house? You think Emily deserves hand-me-downs and a broken porch swing? Felt a flicker of pain hearing Emily's name, but I didn't flinch. She deserves the truth, I said, and I deserve respect. Right then, Emily came down the stairs in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes, clutching a stuffed unicorn. She looked at us both, confused. Grandma, I softened my voice. Hey baby. David stepped in, almost blocking her view. Go back upstairs, Em. We're just talking. But she didn't move. Just looked between us, sensing something was wrong. Her little face was so unsure, so fragile. I wanted to scoop her up. I wanted to protect her from the weight of what was happening. But I also knew, if I didn't stand firm now, there'd be nothing left to stand on later. So I crouched down, keeping my voice gentle. Sweetheart, don't worry. Everything's going to be okay. Grandma's just figuring some things out. Emily nodded slowly, then went back up, her unicorn dragging behind her. When she was gone, I turned back to David. I want my house back, I said. He snorted. You can't just undo a legal transfer. Mom, you gave it to me. No, I said. You took it. I gave you trust. You twisted it. He went quiet. You think I'm just some old lady who doesn't get how the world works? I asked. You think I won't fight back? His jaw clenched. It's already done. Then you'd better believe I'll find a way to undo it. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just looked at my son and told him the truth. I'm not the same mother who signed those papers. That woman believed her son would never betray her. This one knows better. I walked out without another word. When I got in the car, my hands were steady on the wheel. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. David may have taken my house, but I still had my dignity. And now, I had a mission. The morning after my confrontation with David, I sat at the kitchen table, staring into my cold coffee. And I realized something important. I couldn't fix this with feelings. No more hoping David would come to his senses. No more waiting for apologies that would never come. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about justice. About taking back what was mine before it was too late. So I picked up the phone and made an appointment with a lawyer. His name was Thomas Wright. I found him through an old church friend. He had a reputation for being tough, honest, and smart. As a whip when it came to family law. He ran a small firm in town. Nothing flashy, but his reviews were solid. I liked that. I didn't need a shark. I needed someone who still believed in right and wrong. The following afternoon, I walked into his office, holding the manila folder with all my documents. My hands were a little shaky, but I held my head high. The receptionist greeted me kindly, led me into a warm little room with bookshelves and a big wooden desk that smelled faintly of lemon polish and coffee. Thomas was in his early 60s, tall, white hair, combed back neatly, wire-rimmed glasses. He stood up when I walked in, gave me a firm handshake, and said, "Beth, let's talk." I laid everything out on the table. The deed, the signed agreement, a printout of the real estate listing. I told him the full story. I talked about how David came to me with the house dream, how he convinced me to sign papers I didn't understand, how I trusted him, how I only found out the truth because of a question from my 7-year-old granddaughter. I even pulled out my little notebook where I'd written down the dates I'd noticed new purchases, the truck, the trip, the watch. Thomas listened the whole time without interrupting. He only asked a few questions, and they were smart ones, focused. When I finished, he leaned back and rubbed his chin. "What you're describing," he said carefully, "falls under what we call financial elder abuse. Your son may have gotten your signature, but if he misrepresented what those documents were, or exploited your trust, that can be challenged." I blinked. "Even if I signed it?" He nodded. "The law protects people, especially seniors, from being manipulated into signing away property. But here's the part that really caught my eye." He tapped the real estate printout. This listing, he said, went up 3 days before the ownership was officially transferred in county records, which means he was acting like the owner before the deal was legally final. So it's not permanent. Not yet, he said. Technically, the sale isn't valid until it clears the clerk's office, and we've got a small window, very small, where we can challenge it or make our own move. I sat forward, heart pounding. What kind of move? Thomas looked me dead in the eye. We fight fire with fire. I wasn't used to hearing that from a lawyer. He explained the strategy. We would prepare to revoke the power of attorney and transfer authorization based on coercion and lack of informed consent. And, here came the bold part, we would immediately list the house ourselves under my name, while it was still legally in flux. Legally, I still had a claim, and we would act fast before David and Amanda had time to block it. It sounded wild, risky, aggressive, but it also felt right. I thought back to all the years I'd spent sitting quietly, nodding, sacrificing, biting my tongue when David said something cruel, smiling through family dinners where I was barely acknowledged, telling myself it's just a phase, or he's stressed, or he means well. But he didn't mean well. He meant benefit. And I wasn't going to be his benefit anymore. I want to do it, I said. I want to take it back. Thomas smiled a little. Good. Then let's move. That night, I sat in bed with my notebook, making lists, real lists, of agents to call, of old friends I could trust, of what I'd take with me and what I'd leave behind. I even researched local buyers who'd pay cash fast. I was moving like a woman with purpose, like someone who finally understood the rules of the game. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like a player. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. The next few days were a blur of signatures, scans, notarized letters. Thomas drafted a notice of revocation, and we had it submitted with lightning speed. Meanwhile, I met with a real estate agent named Grace. Older lady, sharp as a tack, reminded me of a poker player. She didn't ask why I needed to sell fast. She just looked at me and said, let's make this happen. We listed the house for just under market value, low enough to get attention, high enough to make sure David and Amanda wouldn't get a penny from it. I told Grace to keep my name as the sole contact and to use her office for all correspondence. I didn't want David getting wind of it until the deal was already moving. I wasn't trying to destroy him, but I wasn't going to let him destroy me either. Let him learn the lesson the hard way. You don't get to bury the woman who raised you, just because you think she's too soft to fight back. This time, I was holding the cards, and I was ready to play. I don't know what it was that made me pick that restaurant. Maybe the white tablecloths, maybe the soft piano music they played during lunch hours, or maybe it was just the fact I'd walked past it for 20 years and never once felt like I belonged inside. But that day, I walked right in. It was a Tuesday, quiet, the kind of day when people who have time on their hands take long lunches and sip wine without checking the clock. I wore my nicest blouse, the one with the little lace trim on the sleeves, and a pair of pearl earrings Harold had given me on our 20th anniversary. I hadn't worn them in years. I asked for a corner table by the window. The hostess smiled and said, "Of course, ma'am," like I was someone who did this all the time. I sat down, ordered a glass of Chardonnay, and breathed. I didn't bring a book, didn't check my phone. I just watched the street outside, the people passing by, the sun catching on windshields. My breathing was slow, steady. I didn't feel like someone on the run. I felt like someone stepping into her own life. Finally, the salad came. Then the salmon dot. Everything was plated so neatly, like art. I took my time, cutting each bite carefully, chewing slow, like I had all the time in the world. Then my phone started ringing. At first, I ignored it, but it rang again and again, 6 times in a row, all from David. I set my fork down, wiped my mouth with the cloth napkin, and picked up the phone. I answered calmly. "Hello." His voice came through like a siren. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" I said nothing. "The house. It's not under our name anymore. Amanda just got a call from a realtor saying someone made an offer. What's going on? Did you sell it?" I took a sip of wine. "Yes," I said. "I sold it." There was silence, then a choking laugh. "You what? You can't just do that. This is our future. Mom, that house was supposed to be ours." "No," I said, quiet but firm. "That house was always mine. You just didn't think I had it in me to take it back." His tone shifted fast, from shock to rage. "You tricked me. You're insane. This is illegal. I swear to God. I'll get a lawyer. You already did your worst." "David," I cut in. "You used the law to take from me." "I just used it to take it back." He went silent again. Then, suddenly, his voice broke. "Mom, please, we didn't mean to hurt you. We needed help." Amanda was stressed. "I was trying to make it work. I didn't think you'd, God, I didn't think you'd actually do this." His breathing got heavier. Then, he started crying. "Please," he whispered. "Don't sell it. Don't leave us like this. Emily, she loves that house. She thinks it's hers too." I closed my eyes. For just a second, I let his words settle. Then, I opened them. "I love Emily," I said, "but I won't let you use her to hold me hostage." There was nothing left to say. So I ended the call and turned off my phone. I didn't cry. I didn't feel proud either. What I felt was something deeper, like finally exhaling after holding my breath for years. I finished my wine, paid the bill, and left a generous tip. Not because I was showing off, but because I finally could. That afternoon, I went home and started packing. I knew I couldn't stay in town. Not now. David wasn't the kind of man who would take this quietly. I imagined Amanda's fury, the legal threats, the late-night texts. I didn't want to be around when the storm hit, so I made a list. Sell the rest of the furniture. Transfer my savings to a new account, separate from anything David might know about. Rent a little place in a different county for now, maybe closer to the coast, somewhere quiet, with good coffee and a used bookstore nearby. I wouldn't disappear. I'd just begin again. A different life, on my own terms. And for the first time in years, that thought didn't scare me. It thrilled me. I wasn't running away. I was walking out, head held high. Not the broken mother who got taken advantage of, but the woman who finally chose herself. It had been 3 weeks since I'd left town. I was living in a small rental cabin nestled in the Blue Ridge foothills. Modest, but peaceful. The kind of place where the mornings smelled like pine and wet earth, and the only sounds came from birds, wind chimes, and the occasional pickup rumbling down the gravel road. No neighbors in sight. No drama at the door. I had a porch with a creaky rocking chair and a view of the mountains that could hush even the worst thoughts in my head. That place wasn't permanent, just a landing spot. A breath before the next step. I was making tea when the first call came. It was Sharon, an old friend from the quilting circle back home. "Beth," she said, low and hesitant, "are you okay?" I frowned. "Yes, why?" She hesitated again. Then she said, "David posted a video about you." I didn't understand at first. What kind of video? What? But when I hung up and turned on my laptop, the answer hit me like a punch to the gut. There it was, front and center. A video of David sitting in what looked like their kitchen, soft music playing underneath, speaking in a voice full of rehearsed heartbreak. "My mom betrayed me," the title read. The caption, "She took our house. She ruined our family." The video had over 87,000 views. He painted the story like a Hallmark tragedy gone wrong, said he trusted his elderly mother, gave her everything, and one day, out of nowhere, she sold the home his daughter grew up in and vanished, leaving them homeless, heartbroken, and devastated. He called me manipulative, said I'd been controlling his life for years, said I only gave them money to hold it over their heads, claimed I turned Emily against them, even accused me of being mentally unstable. He cried at the end, actual tears. Then, he held up Emily's little unicorn necklace, the one I'd given her, and said, "This is all we have left of the life we built." I didn't cry, but I sat there, for a long time, frozen. The comments were worse. They didn't know me. They didn't want to know me. They just needed someone to hate. "Rot in hell, you greedy old witch. Hope karma eats her alive." Some people shouldn't be allowed near children. Elder abuse. More like family abuse. I saw someone had even posted a photo of my old front yard, my roses, with the caption, "This used to be Emily's playground. Now it's gone, thanks to her monster grandma." They called me names, twisted the story, shared it like gossip over a digital fence. But it wasn't the insults that hurt the most. It was the thought that maybe Emily saw it, that somewhere, someone showed her the video, that she might believe it, that she might grow up thinking I was the villain in her story. instead of the one who tried to protect her from the wolves in her own home. That broke me. I called Thomas, my lawyer, told him everything. He listened, calm as ever. Then said, "Beth, I was going to wait until the end of the week, but I think you should hear this now." He told me David had gone further than I thought. Turns out, in the days before I reclaimed ownership, David had secretly tried to leverage the house for a bank loan, despite the fact the paperwork hadn't cleared yet. He presented documents claiming he still owned it, forged them to get access to a private lender. When the bank followed up on the deed and found the transfer had reversed, the red flags went up fast. There was now an active investigation, not just civil, but criminal, fraud, attempted mortgage theft, misrepresentation. Thomas paused, then said, "He didn't just lie to you, he lied to the bank, to the law. He thought he was untouchable." And that's when something in me snapped back into place. Not anger, not vengeance, resolve. I wasn't the woman they were painting online. I wasn't a villain, or a witch, or some bitter old woman with a grudge. I was a mother who got betrayed, a grandmother who was used, a woman who gave until she had nothing left, and then had the strength to take it back. So I told Thomas, "We're going public." He hesitated. Sure you want to go down that road? These things can get ugly fast." "I've lived through ugly," I said, "but lies only grow in the dark. It's time we turned the lights on." The next day, we drafted a statement, a simple, truthful account. I told my story, not in bitterness, not to attack, but to make the record clear. We submitted it to a local news outlet, then posted it quietly on a personal blog Grace helped me set up. No dramatics, no tears, just the facts. I didn't try to play victim. I just told the truth. And slowly, quietly, a few voices started to shift. A couple people commented things like, "This doesn't add up," or "Why would a mom do that without a reason?" And that's all I needed, not to be loved, not even to be vindicated, just to be heard, just to exist in the story I'd actually lived. That night, I sat on the porch of the little cabin, wrapped in a blanket, drinking chamomile tea. The mountains were dark, the wind carried the smell of pine. I heard an owl somewhere far off, and for the first time since this whole mess began, I didn't feel like I was hiding. I felt like I was waiting. For what? I didn't know exactly. Maybe a new beginning. Maybe just peace. But whatever it was, it would be mine. The courtroom smelled like old paper and polished wood, cold and sterile, the kind of place where the truth isn't spoken gently, but hammered into place like nails in a coffin. It was my first time appearing in court, not as a witness, not as a mother standing beside her son, but as a plaintiff, a woman bringing her own child to face justice. I sat beside Thomas Wright, my attorney, in the front row of the courtroom. He wore his usual gray suit, glasses low on his nose, and a calm, steady look like he'd been here 100 times before. He had my folder in front of him, thick now, with every piece of proof we'd collected. The deed showing I was the sole legal owner, the bank records highlighting David's reckless spending, the fake documents he submitted to the private lender, trying to secure a loan on a house he no longer owned. Screenshots of the listing David posted days before the property was legally his, and most importantly, his own social media posts, flaunting luxury while crying poverty to the internet. I was calm, more than I expected. Maybe I had cried it all out already. Maybe the hurt had calcified into something harder. Or maybe it was the truth sitting in my bones, keeping me upright. They called my name. I stood up and walked to the front of the room. My shoes echoed on the tile floor, each step louder than the last. I wore black slacks and a navy blouse, my hair pinned back neatly. No pearls, no makeup, just me, plain, direct, unshakable. When I sat down and raised my hand to be sworn in, I looked briefly to my left. David sat with his own lawyer. Amanda wasn't there. He looked small, pale, avoided my eyes. For a split second, I felt a flicker of something, grief, maybe guilt, but it passed, because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth. The judge was a woman in her 50s, sharp-eyed and soft-spoken. She asked me to begin. Thomas stood and spoke first. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't attack. He simply laid out the facts. "This is a case of financial abuse," he said, "of a trusted son taking advantage of his elderly mother, misrepresenting documents, misusing funds, and committing fraud to benefit himself. while isolating and publicly humiliating the very person who helped him build his life. He let the silence hang. Then the evidence began. One by one, the documents were entered into record. When it was my turn to speak, I told my story, just like I'd lived it. No theatrics, no bitterness. I talked about the day David came to my house with that folder. How I signed without reading because I loved him. How I paid for their dreams with the money I'd saved by skipping my own. How I learned he'd sold the house out from under me before the ink was dry. And then I told them about the video. About the thousands of strangers calling me a monster. About Emily, my granddaughter, caught in a web of lies she couldn't understand. David's lawyer objected a few times, called it emotional manipulation. But the judge let me finish. Because this wasn't just a case, it was a truth that needed to be said out loud, in a room where lies so often win. David was called up next. He didn't speak much. His lawyer did most of the talking, tried to spin the story as a misunderstanding, said the contract was perfectly legal, said I had buyer's remorse. But when asked about the fake loan application, he stuttered. When asked why he posted the house for sale days before it was even his, he fumbled. And when the judge asked, "Did your mother understand she was transferring full ownership?" he couldn't meet her eyes. By the end of the session, I saw it in the room, the shift, the recognition, that this wasn't the bitter old woman trying to punish her son. This was a mother finally standing up for herself. Afterward, outside the courthouse, Thomas looked at me and said, "You did everything right." I nodded. "That's a first." He smiled, then added, "This isn't over, but you've already won something bigger than the case." I knew what he meant. I hadn't just taken David to court, I'd taken myself back. I used to think being a good mother meant sacrificing everything. That love meant silence. That forgiveness meant never saying enough. But not anymore. Now I knew the truth. Sometimes love means drawing the line. Sometimes strength means walking into a courtroom alone. Sometimes justice means losing a son and gaining yourself. And as I walked away from the courthouse that afternoon, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a woman who had finally claimed her voice. 3 months after the trial, I moved to a small coastal town in North Carolina, a quiet little place with salty air, pastel houses, and seagulls that scream like they're gossiping. It was the kind of town where people said good morning and actually meant it, where the diner waitress remembered your coffee order after 2 visits, and where the ocean never stopped breathing. My new home was a modest bungalow with a wraparound porch and a faded blue door. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and just enough room for me and the life I had left. I didn't bring much with me, just the essentials, a few photos, and the quilt I'd made when Harold was still alive. It was time to start over. And this time, I didn't owe anyone anything. The trial had ended weeks earlier. The judge ruled in my favor. David was ordered to pay back what he had fraudulently taken. He lost his job, not because of me, but because the bank reported his forged loan documents. The court didn't take kindly to that. They called it premeditated financial deception. He faced a hefty fine and a record that would follow him for the rest of his life. The viral video, gone. After the ruling, the platform took it down, citing defamation. Some news outlets that had run with the evil grandma angle issued quiet corrections, nothing loud, nothing sincere, but still, the truth had its moment, and the comments they turned. People started saying things like, "Turns out she was the victim all along. He manipulated her. Typical narcissist behavior. Justice for Grandma Beth." I didn't read them for validation. I'd already done the hard work inside myself, but it did something small and kind, like salve on a wound that had finally scabbed over. Then, one afternoon, in the middle of a warm April breeze, I opened my mailbox and saw it. A cream-colored envelope, handed dressed in wobbly but careful cursive, "Emily Thomas." I took it inside, sat on the porch, and opened it with both hands like it was something sacred. It was 6 pages long. Her handwriting was big, rounded, some words spelled wrong, some crossed out, but the heart in it was clear as day. "Dear Grandma, I'm sorry. I don't know how to make it better, but I want to try. Daddy said things about you that weren't true. I didn't know it at first, but now I think I understand more. I heard Mommy yelling about the court, and I know you were hurt. I'm sorry I didn't stop them. I wish I had. I miss your cookies. I miss your garden. I miss how you let me pick the roses even when you said not to. I miss you. Do you still love me? I hope so. I think about you every night. I want to see you this summer. Please say yes. I held the letter to my chest for a long time. Then, I cried. Not from pain, not from anger, but from relief. That child, my Emily, was still somewhere inside all the noise and hurt. She hadn't been lost to it. That night, I wrote her back. Dear Emily, yes, I love you. I always will. You don't ever have to carry the weight of the grown-ups' mistakes. You are my granddaughter, and nothing will ever change that. I'd love for you to visit this summer. I live near the ocean now. You can help me look for seashells, and maybe we can plant new flowers together. There's a room here for you, with a window that catches the sunrise. Come whenever your heart feels ready. Love always, Grandma. I didn't mention David or Amanda in that letter, not because I wanted to pretend they didn't exist, but because my connection with Emily wasn't about them. It was about her and me, and when she came, I wanted her to walk into peace, not tension, not courtroom memories, just love, clean and simple. I've learned a lot since all this began. I've learned that trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild, and sometimes it never does. I've learned that motherhood doesn't mean martyrdom. I've learned that boundaries don't mean you love less. They mean you love yourself, too. I still carry scars. I still flinch sometimes when the phone rings with a number I don't recognize. But mostly, these days, I wake up to birds and ocean, winds and the smell of coffee brewing in a kitchen that is mine. I take walks along the beach in the early morning before the tourists arrive. I pick up shells. I send postcards to old friends. I smile more, laugh louder. I don't lie anymore, not even to myself, not about being fine when I'm not, not about what I deserve, and certainly not about the kind of life I want. I don't know what comes next. Maybe Emily will visit. Maybe she won't, but I'll be here with open arms when she's ready. As for David, I don't hate him. I don't even wish him ill, but I don't owe him my silence or my forgiveness either. Some debts, once broken, stay broken. And some stories, no matter how painful, need to be told, not for revenge, but for release. This is mine, and I'm still writing it, free, whole, and finally, me. 2 years had passed. The sea had become my clock. The rhythm of the waves, the salty wind, the way the light changed across the water. These were the things that shaped my days now. The pain from before had softened around the edges, not forgotten, but no longer sharp. Like old glass that time had smoothed, I'd made peace with the quiet. Then, one September morning, just as summer was giving way to fall, I opened my front door, and there she was. Emily, 18 years old now, taller than I remembered, her hair longer, eyes wiser. She stood there holding a duffel bag and a small suitcase, nervous but sure. "Hi, Grandma," she said, her voice catching slightly. I didn't say a word. I just pulled her into my arms and held her so tight I could feel her heartbeat against mine. She smelled like vanilla and something else. Maybe anxiety, maybe hope, maybe both. We didn't cry, not then. We just stood there for a while, letting the moment sink in like sunlight into skin. Inside, I made her tea, lavender and mint, the kind she used to like as a child. We sat at the kitchen table, now worn smooth from use. The same table where I'd once stared at betrayal and paperwork. Now, it held something gentler. Emily cleared her throat. "Grandma," she began, "I need to tell you something." She reached into her backpack and handed me a folded piece of notebook paper, scribbled with a few lines. She didn't let go of it right away. "I wrote this a while ago after everything with the court, after the video, after Dad." She looked away, her jaw tight. "He wanted me to reach out to you again. Not to visit, just to ask for money. He said you owed us for... hurting the family." She paused, searching my eyes, but I didn't do it. I nodded slowly, waiting. I told him I wouldn't be part of it anymore. I told him I wanted to choose where I belonged. My throat caught. I reached across the table and took her hand. "You didn't betray your father, sweetheart," I said, gently. "You just made a choice, your own." Her lip trembled, but I still feel like I left him behind. I squeezed her hand. "Maybe you did," I said. "And maybe he needs to be left behind. That's not your fault. That's his journey to walk." She let out a long, slow breath, like she'd been holding it for 2 years. That night, we made dinner together, spaghetti and meatballs, just like old times, garlic bread from scratch, a lavender candle flickering in the center of the table. We set the plates, poured 2 glasses of sparkling cider, and sat down under the soft hum of the ceiling fan. We laughed more than we talked. Emily told me about college orientation. Her major was environmental science. She'd found a small school just 15 minutes from my house. Wanted to study ocean preservation, she said, because if the sea can keep going, so can I. We talked about her favorite professor, the boy she had a crush on but hadn't told, and the music she listened to when she couldn't sleep. She told me I snored. I told her she still picked at her food like a squirrel. She said I had more sass than half her classmates, and I told her she was the bravest person I knew. The food was warm. The air smelled of lavender and toasted bread, and there was something unspoken but strong in the room. A stillness I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The kind that doesn't come from having everything perfect. The kind that comes from knowing someone chose to sit at the table with you, not out of obligation, not for money, not because of blood, but because they wanted to. That night, after we washed dishes and lit another candle on the porch, I thought about the word family. For so long, I'd believed it meant what you were born into. A name, a duty, a chain you carried with you, whether it lifted you up or dragged you down. But sitting there beside Emily, the girl who had walked away from everything she knew just to find a little truth, I realized something else. Family is not about blood. It's about choice. It's the people who stay when things fall apart. The ones who don't run when you say no. The ones who show up, not just once, but again and again, even when it's hard. Emily chose me, not as the perfect grandmother, but as a home. And in doing that, she gave me something no courtroom, no apology, no money could ever offer. A second chance, a full, fearless love, and a future I never thought I'd have again. I don't know what lies ahead for us. Life isn't always kind. But tonight, with her under my roof, with the sound of waves nearby and laughter still echoing through the house, I can tell you this: I am no longer a woman defined by what I've lost. I am a woman who knows what she's kept and who she's let in. Family is not something we are given. Family is something we make. I never thought I'd fall in love again. Not because I was bitter. Not because I was broken beyond repair, but because I believed I had already used up all the love I had in this lifetime. Spent it all on Harold, on David, on Emily. I poured it into Sunday dinners and hand-stitched curtains, into birthday cakes and last-minute rides, into forgiveness I never got back. But then, he showed up. His name was Samuel. I met him on a Sunday morning at the farmer's market down by the coast. The kind of market with sunburned vendors, the smell of basil and fresh bread in the air, and old folk tunes floating from a Bluetooth speaker near the pickle stand. I was reaching for a pot of lavender, half price, slightly wilted, when our hands brushed. "You sure about that one?" I asked, arching an eyebrow. "Lavender's a stubborn little thing. Doesn't bloom unless it feels safe." He smiled, slow, warm, the kind of smile that isn't trying to impress you. "I don't choose things because they're easy," he said. "I choose them because they're worth the effort." That stopped me cold. We ended up walking the market together. I'm not sure who invited who. He was tall, silver-haired, wore an old denim jacket and sneakers that had seen better days. He taught high school history before retiring 2 years ago. Lost his wife to cancer not long after. Still wore his wedding ring. I didn't ask him to take it off. He didn't ask why I bought flowers every Sunday but never smiled when I held them. Instead, we talked about books. He loved Steinbeck. I preferred Alice Munro. He liked his coffee black and bitter. I'd just started adding cream again. Something about that contrast, to people who'd been through different kinds of sorrow, made the silence between us feel less lonely. I invited him over for coffee a week later. He brought warm scones and a bag of tangerines. He didn't try to fix me. He didn't ask about the trial. He just sat beside me on the porch, sipping slowly, saying nothing when silence was what I needed most. Love at this age doesn't crash through the door. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It knocks softly. One morning, he was helping me repot a few overgrown plants on the porch. I was elbow deep in soil, grumbling about root rot, when he looked up and asked, "You ever think about sharing your peace with someone again?" I paused. "You think I have peace?" He laughed. "You wear it like armor, Beth. The question is, do you ever take it off?" I didn't answer. But that night, I made 2 cups of tea instead of 1. And when he came over the next day, I didn't just leave the porch light on. I left the front door open. Emily met him that summer. She was 19 by then, taller, more thoughtful, with that same curious tilt to her head she had as a child. She came to stay for a week between semesters, bringing books and her guitar and a journal full of seashell sketches. She took to Samuel instantly. He taught her how to skip rocks. She taught him how to use spuffa. They laughed together in a way I hadn't heard in years. One evening, as we cleared dinner plates and she disappeared upstairs with her headphones, Samuel touched my arm and said, "She looks at you like you're home." I swallowed hard. I guess I am. For now. He looked at me the way no one had since Harold, not with possession, not with pity, but with respect, like I was something whole, even with all the cracks. I never told David about Samuel. Maybe one day I will, maybe not. Some truths aren't owed to people who tried to silence them. I've let go of the need to be understood by those who refused to see me. That doesn't mean I don't think of David. I do, especially on quiet mornings when I hear a boy's laugh echo through the sand dunes. But I don't miss what we had. I miss what I thought we had, and there's a difference. One evening, as we sat by the fire pit behind the bungalow, Samuel turned to me and asked, "Do you still believe in family?" I looked at the flames for a long time. Then I said, "I believe in people who stay, who show up, who don't use your love like currency." He nodded. "So do I." That night, he didn't sleep on the couch. I still don't use the word love lightly, but I believe in it again, in a quieter way, a wiser way, not the kind that saves, the kind that walks beside. Samuel and I are building something slow, not a future built on promises or paperwork, just presence, just choice. And maybe that's what love really is. Emily calls more often now. She sends photos of tide pools, texts me song lyrics, asks for recipes. Her voice has a kind of peace in it I never heard before. She once said, "I didn't know you could start over after everything breaks." And I told her, "Sweetheart, starting over isn't about what broke, it's about what you carry forward." I carry her. I carry this quiet life. I carry myself, not as a woman defined by betrayal, but as someone who rose from it, and maybe, just maybe, I carry love again. Not because I need it, but because I chose it. I am Beth. And if there's one thing I've learned from the years I thought I'd lost everything, it's this. Sometimes loss is life's way of clearing space for something kinder to arrive. I used to believe love meant sacrifice, endurance, giving without condition. But I've come to realize love cannot survive without respect. No one, not even your own flesh and blood, has the right to treat your love as a given. When sacrifice becomes an obligation, love turns into a chain. I've lost so much, but I have Emily. I have a home where the sound of the waves feels like comfort spoken aloud. I have a man who chooses me, not because I need him, but because he sees I am worth choosing. And now, I want to ask you, you who've stayed with me through this story until this very moment, what would you do if someone you love betrayed you, used the very tenderness you offered to serve their own gain? Would you forgive, stay silent, and keep living in the shadows? Or would you speak, rise, and write a new story for your life? I want to hear your answer. Truly, no shame, no hesitation. And if right now you're hurting, if you're breaking, if you're thinking, "I don't know how to go on," then hear this. God never closes one door without opening a way forward. So long as you have the courage to walk toward it. I've found that light. Now, it's your turn.